last couple of years. But Dave, for people that don't know you and your story, give us a spark notes. Who you are, where you're coming from.
Sure. My story is really about a relationship with money and two currencies. A currency is an object of energy that you put into the flow. And obviously one of those currencies in our world is money. And most people haven't developed the relationship with money. I started to develop mine when I was 5. And my relationship was really simple. I wanted a lot of it, but I wanted it for one reason. I wanted to buy my mom a house and a car. And the reason is the only time I wasn't happy in my life was when I catch my mom stressing about money, car breakdown, food stamps, summer camp I couldn't go to. I lived in what I called a world of not enough. So I felt like a victim all the time. Unfortunately, I sometimes said, why me? Why can't I have that? And my goal was to move into a different world, an abundant world where I could afford everything, including a house and a car for my mom. And so that relationship pushed me through her guidance, doctor, lawyer, failure, to law school. But the advantage of being money motivated, a lot of people don't have a relationship for money, so they either think money's everything or money's the root of all evil. It's not. But one of the good things about seeking money is it keeps your options open. One of the problems I see is that people limit their point of entry, especially in the sports world, whereas I'll tell you I got to the highest levels in sports, is that people, they only want one of the top 32 jobs, right? They want to be a president of a team. Good luck. It's like saying I want to be a superstar, movie star, like, The Rock. There's only so many of those in the world. So money, if all you want is money, you're always looking to make more. You're always looking at different options. That was a huge advantage since I was 5, to learn about so many different things. So when I graduated law school, wanting to make money, I got a job as an oil and gas litigator, which is why I went to law school, because that was the highest paying job out of law school. And 2, to sell legal research on the internet in 1992 with 9600 baud modems, DOS. I carried an XT computer on a luggage cart with a monochrome screen. I know a lot of people can't imagine the internet in 92. It wasn't the same as it is today. My mom actually told me, do not take that job. You are going to lose everything. You're going to waste your law education. The internet's a fad. It's not going anywhere. And one of the biggest lessons of my life was because of that, because I learned that just because someone loves me, which my mom loves me too much, just because someone loves you doesn't mean they give you good advice. And I see so many people voting for what people who care for them and some people that don't care for them's advice. And then they elect it in their life, and then they resent those people because they elect what they vote for. Or even worse, especially in law school, I saw so many kids voting for what they didn't want, not even what for other people want, and then they get what they didn't want and be totally surprised and pissed. Yeah. I learned at that time, I'm voting for what I want in my life. I'm gonna vote for it. Some people call it manifesting, some people call it attracting. I was just voting for what I want and electing by working hard at that time to do so. And 9 months out of law school, I was a millionaire. Everything from that point on reaffirmed my relationship with money, which is money buys love and happiness. In my mind, I had all these friends that I never would have. In my mind, my mom loved me more than any of the other 5 kids. In my mind, I could buy whatever I wanted. I moved from a world of not enough, where I was a victim, to a world of just enough of everything for everyone. And what I was doing was I really wasn't happy, but when I was buying things I didn't need to make me happy, I was buying different things when I wasn't happy to make me happy. And worse, I was buying things to impress people I didn't even like or didn't even know to make me happy. And that evolved and reaffirmed itself from going to the Silicon. I sold the first company with West Publishing, $3.4 billion in 95, went to the Silicon Valley, raised hundreds of millions of dollars in the middleware space. I actually at 30, multimillionaire, married my dream girl in my mind because of all my money, wasn't my looks. And more importantly, I became the CEO of the world's first smartphone. In 1999, they didn't call them smartphones. Samsung phrased them as convergence devices. So it was a Microsoft device, a CE device called the PCE phone. It merged the PC with a phone, and they were so creative they called it the PCE phone. But I had my dream job and dream money. I owned anything and everything that I wanted, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't happy. And I went and, like most people that aren't happy, I bought more things, different things. I surrounded myself with the wrong people and the wrong ideas. Self-sabotage took place. And although that was all occurring, I ended up being the CEO of the most notable sports agency Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment. One other value of really searching for money is that I was always developing my skills, developing my what and who knowledge. Notice I said my what and who knowledge. People get caught in one school or the other. I'm a duality person. I believe knowledge is what and who. It's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's both. I don't know why people separate those things. Anyway, I also had an innate desire, which is the most common denominator of successful people, is I had a desire to must be what I can be. And those three things, skills, knowledge, and desire, combined for my capabilities, which allowed me to be the CEO of Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment, most notable sports agency in the world, and then partner with Warren Moon, the Hall of Fame quarterback, to form my own marketing and media company, a global marketing and media company, which I've built over the last 11 years, and then the last 3 years with my books, speaking, videos, which you were talking about, my podcasts, executive coaching, private coaching, free training, which I've done for over 20 years. I'm building a brand the last 3.5 years for one purpose. I want to empower over 1 billion people to be happy. I'm looking for 1,000 people like you, Mike, that will empower 1,000 people in your lifetime to empower 1,000 people simply to be happy, to make more money, help more people, and have more fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I was talking to Blaine about this before we press start. Like, that's one of the reasons that I vibe so well with you and your message. It's the reason why I'm in Cole and Sonia's community with the Thrive brand, where we first connected. And I'm curious for you around the money piece, because this is a really interesting topic to me. My relationship with money was very similar. Early on, it was like, my whole life revolved around where I could play soccer in college. And then it was, okay, well, what do you study? Because my parents were very much, you're not going to go D1 and get a crummy education. Like, you're going to use soccer to get a better education. But then it was like, okay, well, what do I study to make the most money? Because back then I wanted to make a lot of money, retire young, and start a pit bull rescue foundation. Like, that's what I was fired up about.
Nice.
But it was about money, right? But it was also about impact for me in a weird way. But then my career was very ego-driven, right? It was very much like, how do I get my career in software engineering, which is how I funded all my business stuff. It was big pay raise, big promotion every year. Like, all of the dopamine, right? All the stuff that I thought I wanted, but it was really society telling me that I wanted it. I thought that all that I wanted was to build that business. But the only thing in the way was a BS story about money, saying I needed to recreate the senior engineering salary at a global company in Manhattan with a 9 to 7 or 9 to 11 p.m. side hustle. Right? Like, that's a difficult bridge to build. So inherently money became everything. So I guess now that the context is on the table, the question is, for you, how did you transition from, we always hear like it's not always about money, but people that don't have money will think it's really easy to say that when you have it.
Great question.
What did that transition look like for you?
And I think that's the crux of the issue right there. There's all these blend between two things: the currency of money, as I stated earlier, and the other currency, the object of energy that we put into the flow, called faith. And so those people that don't have money are sitting there with faith, and they're listening to Dave Meltzer going, easy for you to say, well, for me, it's easy because money's still important. Now, you're looking at someone that 2 years, in 2006, before I lost everything, I lost over $100 million in 2008, went bankrupt, which I thought would be the end of me, meaning my own definition of self, that if I could actually have to tell people I went bankrupt, that I paid this dummy tax, that I could not survive that. That would be literally the most tragic thing in my life, because my whole definition of me, my identity, was money. But in 2006, I shifted my paradigm thanks to my father, thanks to my best friend Rob, and thanks to my wife, all who gave me enlightenment throughout the years about that I was lost. And what it ended up being was, I realized that money doesn't buy love or happiness, but it's super important because it allows you to shop. And if you shop for the right things, not the things that you don't need or the things to impress other people, but if you shop for the right things, these impactful things, you're gonna have a lot more happiness in your life than someone that just gives to receive. I always grew up with a mom, a second grade teacher, packed my lunch in a paper bag and went and filled up turnstiles at the 7-Eleven and convenience stores with greeting cards just so we could eat. But she gave everything to her children, everything to her students. She was one of those ladies that made $17,000 a year and still bought school supplies for the school because the school couldn't afford them. Meanwhile, her kids could barely eat. She was a person who believed the more you give, the more you receive. And in 2006, thanks to my wife telling me I better take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become, that I'd lost my way, I'd lost my values, and that she was gonna leave me because I was a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, overseller, and back-end seller. Even though I was a giver, that's who I was. And I didn't recognize it until the next day when I looked at a jacket that my father had given me at 30 years old to teach me that lesson. And I told him I hated him, that I was nothing like him, that he was the liar, the cheater, the manipulator, overseller, and back-end seller. And when I looked at that jacket, I realized I hate myself. I am the liar. And so I went through a transition, a paradigm shift in my life, that I was worthy of everything. And that because I was worthy of everything, I was now only going to focus in on receiving so I could give. Not giving to receive, not a trade and negotiation, not a quid pro quo, not a scarce vision of the world because you can only give what you have. Now, once I shifted the paradigm and said, I live in an abundant world of more than enough of everything, in between limitlessness and infinity, and my right to live here is what I'm attached to, and if I allow it to come through me to others, I must be able to receive more. So money allows me to shop. And never before have I ever been more motivated and less defined by how much money I have. And I've never had as much money as I have right now. And it all flows through me for other people. I live in a world of more than enough. Not just enough, not enough. The world comes through me. And that's what I want to teach people through values and daily practices to be happy, to make more money and help more people.
I love that. And so like, what are some of these practices that obviously we only have so much time on the show and I want to be respectful of your time, but like for people that want to get from one level of energy to the other, right? You talked about these three energies, not enough, just enough, and more than enough. Say people are in one of the first two levels and they want to kind of inch their way forward, what can people start to do in like a very pragmatic way of like do this, get that, to start to inch their way?
I'm so happy you asked because there's 5 things and I'll go through them quickly. And remember, these are practices. I'm still practicing them, right? It used to take me years, then months, then weeks, then days. Now it takes me minutes and moments, but I do it every single day. 2 minutes a day is worth more than 2 hours on a Saturday. That's right, 2 minutes a day is worth more than 2 minutes on a Saturday. So here's the 5 daily practice. Number 1, you gotta take inventory of your values. You know your why, you got to learn your what. Most people, ask them, what do you want to do? What's going to be their answer? I don't know. What do you want to eat? I don't know. You got to know your what. In order to know your what, you got to take inventory of your values. Personal, experiential, giving, and receiving values. You need to also not be afraid of being a hypocrite. I'm the king of telling people I was a hypocrite. I'm the king of telling you I was a dummy. But I'm bragging. I'm bragging by telling you how stupid I was, how much I didn't know. Why? Because I've learned a lesson. Pain's just an indicator I learned a lesson. I'm telling you, hey, don't make the same mistakes as me. And I know my values today and they're completely different than when I was 18 years old. I laugh at my wife when she gets upset because she'll run into a high school friend. She went to elementary, junior high, and high school, and they're like, oh, Dave Meltzer's full of shit. And she gets so upset. I'm like, why are you so upset? That person only knows me from the time I was, 14 to 21. Guess what? The Dave Meltzer who was 14 to 21, I'm here to tell you, was full of shit. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about that Dave Meltzer, but I'm gonna tell you something about the 52-year-old Dave Meltzer. Listen to my videos, listen to my podcasts, watch my TV shows, watch. I've learned a lot. So take inventory of your values. 2, do it now. Ask and attract. Biggest lesson, people ask me, if you went back to when you were 12, what would you tell yourself? 22, 32, 12, 32, 42, 52, doesn't matter. I would teach myself radical humility, to ask for help. The biggest mistake that people make is a simple mistake. If you want to know where to go, find someone that's there and ask them how they got there. It's that simple. We're afraid to ask for directions. What's the question you should be asking? do you know anyone that can help me? Because it's self-inclusive of the person. It makes every gatekeeper into a power sponsor and a sponsor. A sponsor is someone that knows somebody. A power sponsor is someone that will help you themselves and they know someone. So ask people in person, on the phone, email, and social media, radio, print, and TV, do you know anyone that can help me? The third thing, be a student. The mathematical equation of luck, the mathematical equation of my life is very simple. What I pay attention to and focus in on, what I give intention to, what I think, say, do, and believe, equals the coincidences of my life. Study your calendar, activities you got planned and don't be planned in your sleep. My tomorrow starts today with an unwinding routine. If I asked you to go running with me for 8 hours, you're an ex-college athlete, you would want to warm up if we're going to go running for 8 hours. Why don't you think you better warm down in order to go sleep for 8 hours? People don't do it. Fourth thing, easiest way to change your life is to be present. Now, I don't know what the F that means, be present. I've been trying to figure that out, but I've learned a mechanism to be present. It's called do it now. And the magic thing about do it now is 100% of the things that you do now. That's right. This is a statistic that's actually true. 99% of all statistics are made up. This one's actually true. 100% of the things you do now get done. And the difference between successful people, Mike, like you and I and other people, is we get stuff done. So ask yourself, can I do it now? And if you can do it, do it. If not, put it in that calendar to study tomorrow. And then finally, the biggest practice of my life is practicing ending fear, being a ferocious Buddha. And in order to be a ferocious Buddha, one, you got to identify your primary and secondary fears. I have a need to be right, offended, separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty. And they've wasted millions of dollars in time and resources in my life and have ruined parts of my life. So I've learned to identify those. One, two, stop. Unlike the athletes in us, I don't resist anymore. I don't fight it. I don't accelerate in the wrong direction in ego. I simply stop. I breathe, I drop, and then I roll in the right trajectory. A ferocious Buddha has learned to identify, stop, drop, and roll because your mind, body, and soul are on fire. When you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll. Be a ferocious Buddha, practice ending fear. If you do these 5 things, you will move from a world of not enough to a world of just enough, and from a world of just enough to an abundant world of more than enough.
All right, so first of all, everyone rewind and go listen to that again, take notes. That was awesome. I have questions on 2 of them. One I really wanted to talk about, which is asking for help. And then the other one is the do it now, because I think it's really interesting. The first time I heard you say that, I'm like, I had to press pause on the audio and like really question it. Like, did I vibe with it? And a huge reason for that is the way that I entered this high performance space was because I had no idea. I was struggling with panic attacks, didn't know what anxiety was. I was like 25 years old and like sitting in my apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. No clue, never met anyone like it. But in that journey, I realized I had no idea what it meant to be productive. Zero clue. I thought it was just being busy and getting stuff done, right? I didn't realize that doing things doesn't matter when the things you're doing don't matter. Right? Makes sense, but I had no freaking clue. And because of that, that's a lot of the area that I love to get, like the engineering nerd in me loves to look at the data. And it's like, okay, well, if we look at like false emergencies, we don't want to derail our focus too much. So is that something, when you're talking about doing it now, I've heard you talk about someone asks for an introduction, you like take the phone out, send the email really quickly before you go, which is great in terms of getting things done. How much do you balance that with maintaining focus on a task, or is it always just get stuff done? Is that something that you've looked through?
Great question, because there is a nuance to it, which is very important to understand. The first thing that we do is take inventory of our values. That allows us to prioritize our day. So when we do something now, we immediately prioritize by importance. So when I say, ask yourself, can I do it now? We're evaluating it according to the personal experiential giving and receiving values that we have taken inventory at the beginning of the day. We do the most important things first, and those things that are urgent, we don't do, right? There's an old, I think Theodore Roosevelt came up with the importance and urgency chart that has been utilized. I utilize that to do my do it nows, but it's very important to understand part of that value for me is time. And so I know that if I can do something now, like text real quick an introduction, that statistically I'm exponentially more successful and I save at least twice as much time by doing it now, if I can. The other nuance that's important to understand is there's a muscle I want everyone to work out. And it's one of the best muscles that I had. And it's called the focus muscle. And the reason is that our minds can only focus on one thing at a time. And I'm like a Carl Lewis or a Usain Bolt of focus. And people are like, what do you mean you think fast? I said, no. I move from one thing to another because I can only focus in on one thing. So what appears to be multitasking to most people, this do it now strategy where I'll do it, it's not. I am Usain Bolt, man. I am on this task over here and back real quickly. I can now look as if I'm doing 3 or 4 or 5 things because I've been practicing, just like Usain Bolt and Carl Lewis, and I don't know what your generations are, the fastest man on earth. I want to be the fastest focuser on earth because I can only focus in on one thing, but if I can refocus faster than anyone else, it gives me a huge advantage to do things now. And so those two nuances allow me, one, to prioritize so that I'm constantly in line with my values, and two, to get more stuff done.
Got it. That's interesting, yeah, because it's like context switching, right? And it sounds like the practices that you've deployed have allowed you to increase the ramp up and the cool down speed from switching from context to context. And that's really where people lose the time, right?
Exactly.
I remember,
and they lose their prioritization. How many times, like my wife did it yesterday, she got so caught up she forgot to pick up my son from school. Now she's gonna kill me for this podcast, but it really happened. I got a call from school, right? Most people would panic. When I got the call, everybody around me was, I'll go get him. No, right? Refocus, bam, got him picked up immediately, solved the problem. Meanwhile, she can't refocus very quickly, right? But I love other things about her. Her strengths are my weaknesses. My strengths are her weaknesses, so we fit perfectly together.
And that ability to like really stay cool under pressure in situations like that while everyone else seems to go to chaos, like is that due to the continuous practice of finding center and gratitude?
Right, so that myth of Sisyphus I talk about with the wind down routine, most people roll a boulder up all day long, and it's difficult life. And then it rolls all the way back down and they start over in the morning. I plateau and grow. I find my highest frequency through meditation first thing in the morning at 4 a.m. and that's my baseline. And I actually recognize where it's at. I make a physical, visual mark and saying, here's how I feel. This is where my mindset is, my heart set is. And therefore, if I go off of my mindset or heart set, I stop. I don't care what's going on over here. Where I used to react immediately because I had all this confidence and bravado and ego, I can handle this. That's terrible. That's where you end up in anxiety zone like you were. Instead, I've learned through neutrality, through center, the only way you can find center is to stop and practice quiet. So when everything else gets more chaotic, the first move I do is identify the fear-based consciousness, the chaos, and then 2, I stop. Now, when I stop, I start breathing to what? Get myself back to that place that I started the day, my highest frequency, my higher Christ life itself, my potential, and that allows me to expand and grow beyond anybody's imagination, including mine.
Awesome. I want to transition quickly to asking for help.
Yep.
Right. One of the coolest things that I learned from you when we first connected was, do you know anyone who can help, or how can I be of service, and do you know anyone who can help me? And Blaine and I were talking about this before. I think it's really great in theory, but I think when it comes to the execution, people lack. And I think there are a couple reasons for that. One, I think, like you mentioned, there's sometimes an ego of needing to ask for help, like kind of like that masculine situation of like, I need to feel like I have it all together. But then number 2, and this is where I kind of really want to go, is oftentimes I think a lot of people are afraid because they're like, well, what if I can't afford the person who I get introduced to, right? So I think there's 2 different worlds there. How have you were you always willing to ask for help at all points? Like, how did you build that skill, and what did that trajectory look like?
That's a wonderful question because no, I was ego driven. I always tell myself it's still the 2 words that sit on the nightstand. I kick myself sometimes going, I can't believe I didn't ask them. Because I'm so blessed to be around the most powerful people, billionaires, millionaires, entrepreneurs, media people, celebrities, athletes, and entertainers. I can't believe I didn't ask them for help. I have to push myself still today because the ego will tell us we're separate, inferior, superior. That's the 2 the things that you were describing are just simply the ego telling us that we're not all one. And so I have to remind myself that we are one and that I can provide as much value as they can provide for me, and that I'm doing them a gift. I'm giving them the present by asking them to give me their true higher self, their value, and utilizing a series of questions to determine how they best can help is the most subtle and successful way of doing so. But I am still on that practice of asking, and I want people to get and understand, 1, just try 1 ask a day in person on the phone, via email or media. Just make the ask. You ask, how do you feel good about that? Well, I'll tell you, the results motivate you, inspire you, because the more you ask, the more you get. And sometimes I do ask sometimes, like beyond what I think, right? And I always say you can't out-ask the universe in quantity or size. I mean, you can make as many asks as you can. And sometimes I'll make an ask and the person says yes, and I'm like, whoa. And then it reminds me, why don't you ask more? I actually check my sent box in my email to see how many times I asked during the day, could you do me a favor, share my content and do good deeds? Could I ask you to be of service with me and invite somebody to come to my free trainings? Whatever it may be, that should be on every email, right? This is what I'm trying to empower over 1 billion people. Can you help me share my message, empower others? Does that sound fair? And yet I go every night and I look at my sent box and it's not at 100%. Let's just tell you that. But I'll tell you this. Here's the other cool thing about asking today compared to when I was practicing as a young person. When we were young, you asked someone for help, they only knew, their card game, their church group, the men's group, the boys, the little league team. They only had a few friends that they felt comfortable reaching out to. Not only on average do people have over 1,000 people in their network, we've made it so easy for them to ask for help for us. Yeah. It's like a post or a thing, they share it, and boom. Imagine every day if you just ask one person, that's 31,000 people you reach every single month. It would take me a lifetime of asking in the old school methodology before they had cell phones even to get 31,000 people to get an ask from me. It was impossible. Yeah. Unless you were a TV star.
Yeah, 100%. And then when you inch towards the financial side of the question, right? Sometimes when you're going for those bigger asks, people are afraid of it because they're like, okay, well, I can't afford to get the help, right? So does that then become part of that ask, or at that point do you just try and find creative ways to offer tons of value? Like, how do you approach that?
Beautiful question. Confidence. How's confidence created? People don't realize confidence is created by the practice of 5 things. 1, credibility. So for example, I got on a stage of 70,000 people in Sydney, Australia, and my kids were like, weren't you nervous? I said, well, come up on stage with me and clap once. Would you be nervous? And they said, no. I said, I know, because you have the credibility that you can clap. You have the emotional attachment that you can clap. You quantifiably know the reasons why you can clap, the impact of your clap, and the capability. All are near 100%. So you'll have no problem doing it. When you look at the credibility, number 1, because remember, if I'm 100% credible, I'll never have to work. Because I could just simply tell all 4 of you guys, hey, if you give me $1 million, I'll give you $2 million by the end of the year. No questions asked, you guys would give it to me if I was 100% credible. But yet we don't spend any time focusing on our credibility. In fact, we diminish and dissolve our credibility because we're insecure. So what do? Oversell, back end sell, lie, manipulate, and cheat. And the minute somebody has a hint of discrediting us, now they're looking at even the credible things for the holes, the voids, the shortages, and obstacles in what we say. So I am working really hard every day because my quantum being, my own inherited being, is a liar, a cheater, manipulator, overseller, and back-end seller. So I have to fight all the time to say credibility, that allows for emotional attachment. People buy on emotion for logical reasons. And then it's just math. How well can I quantify and articulate the value of the reasons, the value of the impact, and the value of my capabilities in order to come to a logical question? Considering all that I'm going to provide you in value and what I'm asking for in return, can you see any reason why you wouldn't want to move forward? I get a huge it doesn't matter if it's $1 billion, 100 million, 10 million, or 10 cents. If I haven't hit those 5 things, I'm going to hear, actually, I'm not interested. And if I do hit all those things, every time I'm going to hear, yeah, that sounds great. Or if I overdid it, it's going to be like, where's the catch? Now you know you're really selling.
I love it. Dave, I want to be respectful of your time. Before I ask the last question, where can people find you on social? What are you doing? Plug away.
Thank you. My biggest thing is I do Friday trainings for free over 20 years. Thousands of people watch it live on Fridays at 11 a.m. Just email me directly, david@dmeltzer.com. I have the replay featured on Spotify, on Entrepreneur, and then it's on every platform. So you can go david@dmeltzer.com, at David Meltzer, Google David Meltzer. That's where you find me. And everything is free, exercises, books, guides. I'll sign my book and ship it to you and pay for shipping. I truly want to empower others to be happy. I have guided my life to activity I get paid for to come through me for others. And it keeps on building an abundance for everyone. So please reach out and join me either live or on the replays.
Awesome. All that will be linked in the show notes. Make sure you get connected, tune in, all the above. David, the last question I have for you, going all the way back, coming out of law school, getting that advice from your mother to go into being a traditional lawyer, deciding that wasn't the path, finding immense success, going through the roller coaster that has been your journey, all the way to this moment right now, well on your way to impacting 1 billion people and doing amazing things in the business world. What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned that has yielded the most results and had the biggest impact on your life and in your business?
My relationship with pain. So pain was always a stop sign. What stops people is 99% of the people, when they know their objective, they know their what, they quit before they're 25% of the way there. It's because they don't understand pain. They see pain as a stop sign. They see pain as whoa, mental, physical, spiritual, financial pain. Wrong, stop. Not me. What I've learned throughout that journey is pain is an indicator. It's a turn signal, not a stop sign, and it's pushing me into a better place, a better position, a better situation, or make my situation better. It's telling me, hey, pain means you have a lesson to learn. This is exciting. You're gonna grow, accelerate, and get to somewhere better. In fact, my whole outlook in life went from, now I believe I'm in the right place at the perfect time. I'm gonna angle to what I want, realizing the pain is an indicator to learning lessons, and I'm going to indicate an angle when I see that indicator, but I have that currency of faith. I have faith that I'm going to end up somewhere better than that. And once you put those things together, your life will change, and you'll realize that the best thing you can do is be kind to your future self and do good deeds, and you will end up somewhere much better than you ever dreamed.
Love it. David, thanks so much. Really enjoyed the conversation.
It's been great to be on the mic with Mike. Thanks for having me.
100%.
All right.